Have you heard the story about the franchise that was so beloved by its fans because it was new and innovative to its genre? It had new ideas and unique characters that drove the plot in cool and interesting ways, met by a fierce antagonist that became the icon of the series. It was talked about and loved just about by everyone. Over time, though, the franchise began to change. Big companies started getting their fingers in it. It quickly stopped being about cool characters and an interesting world, and instead became more about the political messages that the creator wanted to force down the throats of their beloved audience.
Yes, yes.
Soon, the fans got really divided. Some of them wanted to ignore the changes, and just pretend that it was the same old franchise that they had loved for so many years. Some hated it, and wanted things to go back to the way they were. And others, who weren't even fans in the first place, really liked what was happening and called anyone who disagreed with them a bunch of racist, sexist pigs who didn't deserve the franchise to begin with.
A considerable margin, and
And it's all become so convoluted and broken that by the end we're all arguing about a heap of trash that should have been thrown away and forgotten, like my girlfriend's last abortion. Anyway, let's talk about why The Boys sucks now. Number 1. The plot is just a bunch of side quests. Season 4 doesn't have a fucking story. It's just a bunch of things happening with most characters dealing with some part of their backstory, which makes it all feel like the writers are just trying to bide their time until Season 5. When any story starts, there's a few things that are established. For example, what the characters' goals are. This is a pretty simple step when writing any screenplay. It helps the audience understand what the characters are driving towards and why they make sacrifices and push themselves into extreme situations. For example, we know that Butcher wants to get Ryan away from Homelander. By doing this, he'll keep his promise to the woman he loved, and in a way, redeem himself for all the bad choices he's made. But what is everyone else trying to do? In the opening scene, we see that the boys are trying to kill Newman because she's the vice president and they don't want a soup running the country. That makes sense. So you'd think that the season would be dedicated to them trying to take her down, right? No, not really. MM is berated for failing the mission, but is not given any direct orders on what to do next. This is the kind of scene where someone like the president gives the main characters a lead or starts them on a new path so they can try again.
Perhaps later.
Or maybe MM would come up with the plan himself, which would establish that he's now the new leader of the boys.
She's a powerful leader. She's a powerful leader.
But there is no scene where the characters just sit down and discuss what their overall mission is. The characters just wander around without direction. Frenchie is sad because of his complicated gay romance. Kimiko just decides to go after her old terrorist organization. Huey's dad has a stroke randomly. Starlight has started some kind of activist group. Does she run a homeless shelter? I can't remember, and honestly, it doesn't really matter. All of these things have nothing to do with the main plot, and all of the characters are just in a constant state of treading water where they neither grow or move forward in the story. When they finally do run into Newman again, it's not even clear what they're trying to accomplish. They are literally face to face with the woman that the President of the United States has ordered them to kill, and they don't even make an attempt. I know she's really powerful, but why doesn't Kimiko just snap her neck when they're on one of these long, thoughtful walks? At least Starlight sucker punches her. There's even a scene in episode 4 where the president asks Starlight if they had found a way to kill Newman, and she just shakes her Barbie doll head. Of course they haven't found a way to kill Newman. They haven't been looking. Because all the main characters are so focused on different things, none of them are working towards the same goal. Like when Huey and Kimiko meet with A-Train to get a vial of Compound V. Now it's clear that Huey's goal is to get the Compound V in order to save his father from dying. But why is Kimiko there? She has no connection to this story, and she doesn't become part of it later on either. She argues with Huey a little bit about using the Compound V, but never tries to stop him, and she never successfully changes his outlook on the situation. You could put any member of the team in her place and it would not have changed how the scene went. The only reason Kimiko is actually there is so the writers can have a shootout in the place of any real character development. It is also pretty hollow when you realize that in turn, Huey doesn't have anything to do with Kimiko's story with Shining Light. Having two separate stories converge in one scene doesn't make them come together. It just feels awkward and misplaced. I mean, this whole scene genuinely feels like a side quest, and not a fun one, like one of those cargo container missions from GTA.
I'm here. What do I do?
The red containers below need to go on the trucks at the end. Grab them, move them, put them down. First, you gotta line up the cabin over the container. First up,
keep getting
position the
away with
cabin
it.
over a container.
Ultimately, neither of these stories have any impact on each other after this scene. Kimiko doesn't meet with A-Train again. Huey does it alone. And Huey doesn't help Kimiko with Shining Light. So neither of these stories have anything to do with each other or the main plot of the show. It's all just happening. Wouldn't it have made more sense if Frenchie was with Kimiko and they fought Shining Light again? At least their stories have been somewhat connected before. Or how about in order to hurt Kimiko, the Shining Light follow her and realize that she has a close relationship with Frenchie. So they kidnap him and his boyfriend in order to lure Kimiko out to save them. Instead of Frenchie giving himself up to the police, they have to stop Shining Light together. This would both tighten up the storylines and have more characters working together instead of this. See, The Boys has a Stranger Things problem. And I'm not talking about unnatural levels of homosexuality in the 1980s. I'm talking about a bloated cast that results in this treading water and melodrama I've been complaining so much about. See, the problem with too many characters is that the writers have to give them something to do. If the writers don't do that, then the audience will start to wonder what their purpose is in the story. Now, after 4 seasons, can you tell me how many main characters have died in The Boys? Fucking Swatto made the list? Jesus Christ. The only 3 people in this list that could be considered main characters are Becca Butcher, Stormfront, and Black Noir. For a show about facing the dangers of a world run by evil superheroes, nobody ever dies. The Fast and Furious franchise kills more characters off than this show does. You know, this is just my opinion, but I can think of a couple characters that could be written off.
Yeah.
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 And why not? Wouldn't a lot of these problems be solved if you cut down on a lot of these storylines? Look how many plots are going on. Butcher, trying to save Ryan. Huey, trying to save his father. Frenchie, gay romance. Kimiko, going after Shining Light. Homelander, trying to take over the world / confronting his past. Starlight, leading a political movement, dealing with the backlash of getting plastic surgery. MM, failing to lead the boys. A-Train, trying to redeem himself? Jesus Christ. This doesn't include characters like Ashley, or The Deep, or Newman, or Sister Sage, or Firecracker, who all have their own shit going on. Point is that there's too much happening. This isn't Game of Thrones. While it's okay for characters to have their own dilemmas, it shouldn't take away from the larger story that the writers are trying to tell. But as we've already gone over, there isn't a story. Every episode is just an amalgamation of random events that has nothing to do with each other.
Right, yeah. Of course.
But having a large cast doesn't need to be a problem, especially if you know how to write them. It's often quite enjoyable. The issue is that if your characters have no clear direction or goals, it's all going to look like one big mess. Look at Infinity War, for example. It has more characters and less time to complete the story, but does so wonderfully. Characters that have no connection with each other are brought together under one main storyline that is pretty simple. Let's look at the characters in Infinity War and compare their goals to The Boys. Iron Man wants to stop Thanos from getting the stones so he can save the universe. Spider-Man wants to stop Thanos from getting the stones so he can save the universe. Captain America wants to stop Thanos from getting the stones so he can save the universe. Thor wants to get revenge on Thanos, but also stopping him from getting the stones so he can save the universe. Gamora wants to kill her father so he doesn't get the stones, and that will save the universe. I could go on, but I think you're starting to catch my drift. Even when a character has a different reason for stopping Thanos, their goal is ultimately the same. This helps with story flow because the audience doesn't have to stop to question why any of the characters are trying to do something. It's to stop Thanos from getting the stones. Okay, we get it. A lot of these problems in The Boys would be fixed if everyone decided that they're going to kill Homelander. Really, the first scene of the season should have been about the boys learning about Homelander's plan for world domination. They'd be listening in and learning when he reveals it to the Seven, and they'd be aware of what's going on. Now they have to rush to find a way to kill Homelander before he completes his plan. They then discover the soup-killing virus, and then the whole season would be about them trying to get their hands on it. So instead of having this stupid assassination attempt on Newman, the season starts with really high stakes and clear motivations for all the characters. Everyone is invested and works together because this time the whole world is at stake. And this whole storyline would be much more compelling and concise than what we have now. Because right now, it feels like the writers have just pitched some ideas and they made it their final draft of the script.
Oh God, I sound like a jackass. Who approved this script? It's fucking unprofessional!
Number 2. Lazy writing. There are plenty of moments in the show where if you stop to think about it for about 2 seconds, your brain might explode from the sheer stupidity it'll have to process in order to understand this plot.
Some people hate this, James. I don't know what it is, but they fucking hate it. There's people that want to kill me, James.
For you to truly grasp what I'm talking about, we're going to have to go over the Todd of it all. So MM is looking for Todd because his ex-wife guilt trips him into it. Luckily, he just so happens to follow Todd the same day he's meeting with Sister Sage. On a side note, look how bad MM is at tailing people. He rides right up beside Todd and does nothing to disguise himself. Todd even looks straight at the van and just by sheer luck doesn't recognize MM. I mean, this guy's in the CIA, right? He's a trained assassin and killer. He knows how to disguise himself and hide from civilians. Anyway, so Todd then goes into the building where he and his friends are killed by the Deep and Black Noir. MM then watches Homelander as he leaves the building. He senses something is wrong and decides to go to the courthouse just in time for a big brawl with the Homelander supporters. So there's a huge problem with perspective in this scene. See, we as the audience know that something bad is happening because we just saw Todd get beat up worse than Joe Pesci did in Casino. But the boys don't know that. All they saw was Todd go into a building with some random woman, and then Homelander walks out a few minutes later. So why does MM have a "that's so Raven" moment and make this huge leap in logic that something bad is happening at the courthouse?
The fuck is he doing here?
He should be at this trial, no?
Shit.
Fuck you, fascist!
Okay, that didn't go too well.
There's really no connection to make in this situation. I mean, sure, MM can assume that Homelander is up to something, but shouldn't he stick around and try to find out what it is? Investigate or something? The whole point of him being here was to see what Todd was up to, right? So why does MM leave without knowing what happened to him? For all MM knows, Todd is involved in some illegal operations with Vought, or has become some kind of test subject for weird experimentations or something. So MM completely abandons Todd and goes with Frenchie and Kimiko to the courthouse for no reason. The ride ends with Todd's body appearing on the ground with his head bashed in. So I guess MM completed his mission of finding out what happened to Todd just by pure chance.
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
What do you want from theory alone?
See, the writers wanted MM to see that Todd was with Sister Sage and Homelander before his death, so that he could know that Todd wasn't killed at the courthouse. But in doing so, they forced the characters to make illogical decisions that lack any rational thought. It would have made way more sense if the CIA had given them this mission. They could have been worried about what the Homelander fans would do during the trial, and so MM could have had the idea himself to follow Todd, since he both knows him and knows that he's been a part of the Homelander fan group for a while. He taps Todd's phone and realizes that he's been in contact with Sister Sage, and follows them to their meetup. Then MM sticks around for a while, but Todd never comes out of the building, although he does see Sister Sage leave in a Starlighter outfit, and decides to tell Frenchie and Kimiko to follow her instead, because that's suspicious. They follow her, and they see that she's actually the one that starts the fight at the courthouse.
Fuck you, fascist!
During this, MM could then sneak into the building to see what happened to Todd. He then witnesses A-Train leave with Todd's body. So instead of things just happening because the writers wanted certain story elements to be in play, the characters could actually make some logical decisions and have some direction. And all of these tweaks are made without changing a single element of the story.
And if the words "and then" belong between those beats, you're f***ed, basically. You got something pretty boring. What should happen between every beat that you've written down is either the word "therefore" or "but." And there's so many scripts we read from new writers and things that we see.
God, I see movies.
And
you see movies that you're just watching. And it's like this happened, and then this happens, and then this happens. That's when you're in a movie, just going, "What the f am I watching this movie?"
Yeah.
There are plenty of examples of this, and we'd be here all day if I went through every stupid little thing that happens. But whatever. I got nothing better to do.
I just look at the shit that you're sending me.
Yes, chef.
I'm not going to send it. I'm not going to tolerate it.
Why does Kimiko get PTSD rage from seeing one image of the Shining Light organization? And why does this randomly set her on a path of revenge? When the boys are captured by Firecracker, why does Splinter get right next to them before he's about to execute them? I mean, he's holding a fucking assault rifle. He could kill them a block away if he wanted to. Why does Sister Sage tell Firecracker that if she kills the boys that she'll get into the 7, but then later on lets her in anyway, even after Firecracker fails to kill them? How does the wedding in the next room over not hear the firing of semi-automatic weapons in a fight between two superhumans? Why does Butcher tell the boys to escape their fight with Splinter when he's clearly not that big of a threat? Why do the boys just let Firecracker go after they've beaten her? They know that she might become one of the 7. Why not kill her before she becomes an even bigger threat? It's not like they haven't killed superheroes for smaller reasons than this. Why does MM not forgive Butcher at the end of episode 2, but then forgives him off screen and brings him back in episode 4? Why does Butcher give MM 2 identical speeches about saving Ryan, yet neither of them amount to anything? How does the sniper that has a clear shot on both Kimiko and Huey miss when they're both standing completely still? Why didn't Starlight turn off all the cameras before she attacked Firecracker? Why in episode 5 is MM suddenly on the verge of a breakdown when he has shown no signs of mental fatigue previously? Why are the sheep such a problem on the farm when Newman could kill them with her powers? And if she can't do that, then why is that not explained? Why has Newman's husband never been mentioned or referenced before when she's a public figure and the father of her daughter? How did Butcher both incapacitate Samir and cut off his leg in under 5 seconds? Why doesn't Homelander have either Tech Knight or Kate make Cameron Coleman tell the truth? Or why not have them interrogate anyone he's suspicious of? He could just command Kate to go around the room and make everyone she touches reveal their true loyalties to him. How does Homelander not hear the gunshot inside the house? Why also does he not immediately look for the person that shot Sister Sage?
Look at this! Look! 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 What the fuck is this?
So when the show isn't creating lazy plot lines or even lazier action scenes, it's pumping the screen full of melodrama and bullshit. The characters in the show are constantly bickering about nothing and for reasons that go nowhere. For some reason, everyone hates Butcher now. Now, on the surface, you'd think it's because he teamed up with Soldier Boy in Season 3. But if that was the case, then why does nobody hold a grudge against Huey? He was complicit in almost all the same actions. He betrayed MM and used Temp V, and actually only stopped because Butcher left him behind before the final fight with Homelander. So why does everyone treat Butcher like a piece of human trash? I mean, seriously, MM and Starlight say horrendous shit to this guy, and he's fucking dying. For the two characters who are supposed to be the most morally virtuous and sympathetic members of the team, they sure like to kick a guy while he's down. MM literally beats the crap out of Butcher and then gives him a speech about how he just wanted to be brothers with him again. But in every scene, he's either berating Butcher or telling him how much he doesn't trust him. From a consequential viewpoint, none of these characters should be mad at Butcher at all, because his actions in Season 3 had no negative long-term consequences for the group. By the end, Butcher saw what he was doing was wrong and fought Soldier Boy. Nobody was killed or injured because of the fight, and everyone ended up better off than they were before. So essentially, Butcher gave himself cancer in a failed attempt to kill Homelander, and everyone is mad at him? It's lazy just to call this show lazy, but whatever.
You know, this is causing me serious psychological harm.
I don't know. Who am I?
So between the lack of story and inconsistent characters, the season certainly has taken a dip in quality. And while the gore and edgy humor might still be charming to some, it can't hide the fact that there is nothing going on or nothing of interest happening in the story. Number 3. Frenchie is the worst human being on the planet.
What's that? Say that again? What? What the hell are you talking about?
So Frenchie is gay and he started dating a guy now instead of Kimiko, which feels about as natural as a forced lobotomy.
Oh, God.
This relationship is boring and pointless, and it's pretty clear that the main reason it plays such a big part in this season is to suck up screen time. Now, it's become apparent to me that some of you believe that my hatred for this show stems from my extreme political beliefs and a slight touch of homophobia. And while I do have an irrational fear of gay people, my opinion of Frenchie has nothing to do with homosexuality. It's all got to do with character development.
Think about it, though, Tom. Some weight loss. AIDS? Nobody's got AIDS.
So I'm going to be fair and take this relationship on its own merits. So let's go over it. It's explained that Frenchie met Colin in AA. He recognized him as the surviving son of a family he murdered, and out of terrible guilt for his crimes, Frenchie decided to help Colin out by getting him a job with Starlight. Somewhere in that time, he started to have feelings. Lots of feelings. And the two began this will they, won't they relationship like it's a 90s sitcom.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
Frenchie is clearly in love with Colin, but tries to keep his distance due to a crushing weight of guilt he feels for being a mass murderer. But Frenchie can't keep away. He loves Colin, so much so that he tells him the truth, which leads to a bit of BDSM, and then Colin breaks up with him. How Shakespearean. Okay, so why? Why did Frenchie do this? It doesn't make any sense. You're gonna bang the last surviving member of the family you murdered? Are you so emotionally immature that you couldn't control yourself enough to walk away? What did you think was gonna happen? I have no idea what the writers are trying to say to the audience with this storyline. Are we supposed to feel bad for Frenchie? He straight up kills Colin's family, which clearly leads to him being a drug addict. And if that wasn't bad enough, Frenchie then decides to get involved with him both physically and romantically, which leads to him having emotional dependence on Frenchie. After this is established, he immediately tells Colin that he was the one that killed his family, again ruining Colin's life. This might be one of the most sinister and evil things to ever happen on this show, and that's saying a lot.
I don't know what is going on, but somewhere our wires got crossed.
The only explanation for these decisions I can think of is that Frenchie is actually a psychopath that enjoys reliving the experience of killing his victims and exploits the survivors by getting them to talk about their lost loved ones. I mean, Frenchie literally broaches the conversation about Colin's dead family when he knows exactly what happened to them.
You never told me about them. Your family.
I guess the revelation for Frenchie in this scene is that Colin saw the scars on his ankles, which means that Colin could identify him as the killer. Frenchie gets stressed out by this because it seems that these two spend a lot of time with their socks off, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, I guess the biggest thing that nobody knows about me is I'm a deeply closeted gay man.
What? Is the audience supposed to relate to this? This isn't some story about forbidden love or a second chance romance. Frenchie fucking killed this guy's family and then emotionally manipulated him.
I'm a pretty, I guess I'm a pretty sick guy.
This whole interaction would be far more interesting if this was where Frenchie realized who Colin's family was. If he had been learning along with the audience that he was the murderer, it would have added a much deeper level of tension to the scene. It would also justify all the self-loathing that Frenchie has been doing this season, because the audience would sympathize more with his struggle, as there is at least some level of innocence to their relationship. Having Frenchie already be aware of this takes away from the pin drop moment. And if anything, it makes Frenchie seem creepy and gross. And as the audience, it's difficult to feel anything except irritation with Frenchie, because this is all entirely his fault. He knew that he killed Colin's family. He knew what he was doing was wrong. It's weird that he began a relationship with this guy.
Yeah. Weird.
So when the writers have him moping around for a whole season, acting depressed and boring, I don't care. It's annoying, not relatable. And what I hated most about all of this is that it's again resolved with another heart-to-heart with Kimiko. I swear the only story that they have for these two characters is, oh, I'm sad because I was forced to be a monster. Oh, I am also sad because I was forced to be a monster too. It really can't be understated how deranged someone would have to be to do this to someone else. Or Frenchie is so emotionally stunted to the point where he can't understand basic human emotions. But I guess writing reflects the writers, right?
Man is condemned to be free because once thrown into this world, he's responsible for everything he does.
Stop being
against
boring.
my will.
Stop being sad. You're ruining it.
I
You're
rather-
ruining the show.
How can we
You're
possibly
ruining the show. Number 4. Oh no. Homelander's about to go crazy.
Don't mind if I do!
How many times are they going to tease us with this idea? It feels like his fall into madness is happening at the same speed of which a clogged toilet drains. Like every time you think, oh, this is it, he's lost it, nothing really happens. Nor does he really change. Like when he killed Stillwell, or when he was publicly shamed, or when Stormfront died, or when Soldier Boy was after him. All of these moments act like these breaking points for his character, but fail to make any lasting impressions. A big part of this show is Homelander's need to be loved by everyone. But how many times does he say he doesn't need it anymore?
I don't need everyone to love me. I don't need anyone.
Well, being feared is A1 okie doke by me.
We gotta cut that part of you out like a cancer. And then
Well, then, my boy, you can finally be who you were always meant to be. I don't need any of it anymore.
Yeah.
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 So episode 4 is all about him going back home to that evil basement where he grew up. But why? This is already well-trodden ground. He confronted Vogelbaum back in season 1 for crying out loud. This has already been done. There is no revelation to be extracted from this storyline. We don't learn anything new, and there's no big reveal. Homelander just hangs out in a basement for an episode and does nothing. Now, from watching people react online, you'd think this is some kind of masterclass in storytelling. But as it turns out, people are pretty easily entertained. All it takes is watching a guy get his dick lasered off, and the audience will act like clapping seals. Not me, though, because I'm an intellectual. Ineffectual. Incredible.
Nah, Doc. I mean, is he, retarded?
Now, I can hear you disagreeing with me already. But Anthony Starr's acting is so good. He's so evil in this scene. I love watching him torture people. Hey, I like watching brutal mutilation as much as the next guy. But Anthony Starr's acting is not the problem here. It's the writing. The only reason I could sit here for an hour is because he does such a good job playing the character. But don't let good acting distract you from the writing equivalent of watching paint dry. It's pretty easy to prove that there's nothing gained from this scene, and I'll show you why. So what did we know about Homelander before this episode? That A, he's a narcissist who needs approval from the masses to make himself feel good. B, that he's a murderer that can and will do anything he wants to people that annoy him. C, that he enjoys hurting people. And D, that he was tortured by Vought and kept in a cell for his entire upbringing. So what do we learn after this episode is over? A, that Vought engineered Homelander's need for approval, I guess? But it's been inferred throughout the show that this is a result of his childhood trauma anyway. Saying that Vought did it deliberately doesn't really change or add anything to this aspect of his character. And B, the other thing we learned is who tortured him specifically, like the guys who did it. But who cares? We already know who led the project. It was fucking Stan Edgar and Vogelbaum. So why doesn't Homelander prove how little he cares about praise to the guy he wanted acceptance from the entire show? Remember when I brought up how this show has a problem with perspective? We as the audience don't know who these people are because we just met them. So it doesn't really matter if they live or die. They're pretty much the equivalent of a red shirt in Star Trek. They are just there to take the hit so the main characters can live, and it gives the audience a false sense of stakes. So when you watch Homelander give a brief description of what each person did to him as a child, and then he punishes them for it, it really doesn't have any emotional payoff. This would all have made more sense from a character viewpoint if he had flown to Edgar's prison cell and done this to him instead. He's an established character that has been a threat to Homelander before, and he's the reason that Homelander was tortured.
A little respect, Stan. Something you should have given me.
What good would that do? Where would it even go?
They were just following orders, Dr. Vogelbaum's, Stan Edgar's, and mine.
Yeah, but they followed them.
If the writers wanted to show that Homelander has finally lost his need for approval, he should have killed Edgar. But this is the point. None of this means anything. On a side note, what the fuck are all these scientists doing down here? If I was a scientist that worked at Vought, and the child I personally tortured rose to become the head of the company, I would leave that company. Why would these people wait around for Homelander to come kill them? They know who he is. They know what he's capable of. It doesn't even look like they've been working on anything since Homelander was a kid. Why didn't Barbara hit up Stan Edgar and say, "Hey, can you put me into hiding?" Instead of doing that, they just sit there like sitting ducks waiting to be executed. God, this show used to be smart.
Unprofessional!
The overall point I'm making here is that this scene is yet another attempt to dangle something interesting in front of the audience without actually committing to it. Hey, look at the gore. Look at Anthony Starr's acting. It's so good. But please forget, nothing of substance is actually happening.
This confession has meant nothing.
Number 5, the world's smartest woman.
I bet you'd both be real sorry if I killed myself, wouldn't you? Huh?
Why are you saying that?
No reason.
Sister Sage might be the most vapid, stupid, boring, and annoying interpretations of a genius character I have ever watched on a television program. Besides her dull personality, the worst part about her character is that we're told that she's smart, but we're never actually shown that she is. That's an old rule in storytelling, because if you just tell an audience something, it won't resonate with them as much because they're not experiencing it for themselves. Usually when writing intelligent characters, creators will make an effort to show the audience the high levels the characters think at. Look at Sherlock Holmes, for example. Whether it's his unique perceptive abilities, clever anecdotes, or how his quirks make him seem strange in social situations, it really stands out to the audience how intelligent he is. Sage does none of these things. For the most part, she seems like a normal woman with a bad sense of fashion. She doesn't really make any clever remarks or speak in a manner that puts her above anyone else. I mean, sure, in her opening scene we can see that she can deduce quite a bit about someone just from looking at them, but this ability isn't very consistent and it seems to change depending on the scene. For example, when Homelander and Sage are interrogating the staff at Vought to find out who's been leaking information, Homelander unexpectedly kills Annika when they're interrogating her. Sage is upset by this because Homelander's impatience makes her unsure if they've actually plugged the leak or not. Now this might seem like a small thing, but it raises important questions for the character and her abilities. If she can read people so well, then how did she not know that Homelander was lying? And if Sage knew that Homelander would kill Annika, then why did she let it happen? Was this part of her plan? But if Sage can read someone like a book, then wouldn't she be able to discern if someone was leaking information just by having a brief conversation with them? She pretty much figures out that A-Train's the leak just by looking at him, so wouldn't she be able to do the same thing with Annika? See, the problem with writing a genius character is that their intelligence needs to be applied to every action they take. This will justify their abilities to the audience. But having a character be surprised in situations where she should be a step ahead of everyone else undermines her character. But even when writers find a way for Sage to have everything planned out, she still comes off like a moron. For example, in episode 2, Frenchie, and Kimiko track Sage down at TruthCon. It's revealed pretty quickly that she's led them into a trap, where Firecracker and Splinter have them surrounded. Sage then tells the boys that she's been onto them the whole time, and that this has all been a part of her plan to have them killed. She then tells Firecracker to kill all 3 of them, but then walks away before anything happens, like she's a 1960s Bond villain.
Wait, aren't you even gonna watch them? They could get away.
No. I'm going to leave them alone and not actually witness them dying. I'm just going to assume it all went to plan. What?
So let's break this down to see how stupid all of this actually is. Instead of walking away, she could have just had Firecracker and Splinter kill them. From a distance. Then bang. They're dead. Or why not bring a whole group of undercover Vought agents to back her up so they could kill the boys? Or bring the Deep and Black Noir. They could do it too. How about Homelander? He'd probably want to kill the boys. Or literally anyone else besides 2 people you just met. How does Sage know that Firecracker is even capable of murder? Does Sage have some information on Firecracker that would suggest that she's capable of doing that? If that's the case, then she'd still need to have met Firecracker first in order to analyze her, to determine whether or not Firecracker could be hired as an assassin? What if Firecracker said no? What would Sage have done then? I mean, the only proof that Sage has of her alliance with Homelander is a selfie she took earlier in the episode. But this photo doesn't mean anything. Homelander is a celebrity. He takes pictures with people all the time.
Can I get a selfie?
Of course you can.
Why would Firecracker believe that Sage is meeting with her on behalf of Homelander? And it's not like it would have been hard to get this information. Again, she could have brought the Deep and Black Noir, both as her muscle and as evidence that she's working with Vought. Or maybe some Vought representatives. Or lawyers. Or anything except a fucking selfie.
Are you? I don't know how to... I have a rule about being constructive, so I can't ask any questions right now because all of the questions that I have right now are rhetorical and they end with the word idiot.
See, what the writers have done is just give Sister Sage a bunch of powers that nobody knows the rules of. She can do whatever the plot needs her to because the audience has no set understanding of what her capabilities are. It essentially gives the writers no accountability because they can make her be whatever they want and we just have to accept it. In one scene, Sage can analyze so well that she gives him a panic attack just by talking about his insecurities. But then in the next episode, she is shocked when she's kicked out of the 7 by Homelander. Wait, I thought she could predict how people will act in any given situation.
What?
Can't she read people really well?
What?
But she's predicted the whole season. Can someone with these abilities ever really be surprised?
What? What's that? Say that again?
How can she both be able to predict everything and still be surprised?
What is going on?
I am almost never surprised.
Oh, I guess she still can be surprised? What?
I don't know what is going on, but somewhere our wires got crossed.
Even in Sage's introduction, I walked away scratching my head on a few things. And not because it was such intelligent writing that I couldn't understand it, but because the smartest person on the planet came off as kind of an idiot.
And I thought, what a fucking dumbass.
Why is she just reading books in her apartment and not leading something like NASA? You'd think being a super genius would lead you to do more than nothing. How can the smartest person in the world be so content to sit in a messy apartment and not contribute to society? She lives in Detroit, right? She could have at least had one of those little farm allotments or something. It's pretty clear from her backstory that Sage's motivation is to finally be listened to and to have the opportunity to manipulate global events. But she didn't need Homelander to do this. If Sage is as powerful as the show tells us that she is, then she could have manipulated the world by becoming a politician, or becoming some kind of agent for the government, or starting a major company. The show wants us to believe that she's some kind of disenfranchised black woman from Detroit that hates society because it never listened to her. But it's ridiculous, because she could have found a million different ways to manipulate society. I mean, she likes to bring up ethnicity a lot. She could probably start a race war like Malcolm X did in Black Panther. His plan was retarded, but hey, at least he was motivated. It's like the writers of this show sat around a table talking about what the main tropes of genius characters were, and decided that making a lazy burnout would somehow be more interesting. Oh, well, how will the audience know that she's smart? Just have her make some racial commentary that gives her the vibe that she'd be mildly obsessed with the concept of racial segregation.
Can't have one of us without a racial qualifier. Plus, I'm a black woman who is 1,000 times smarter than you. Your ego can't handle it.
Appreciate the subtextual racism there.
How's that for uppity, cracker? Harry Potter, Neo, Luke Skywalker. Hollywood's trained people to fall in love with white boy lone saviors. Presented my research to those satisfied fat crackers.
Well, I guess that brings us to number 6, the smartest woman's smartest plan. I gotta say I saw this one coming. Of course Sage had it all planned out. Didn't you know that all of her stupid decisions, bad ideas, and horrible mistakes were all part of the plan? Like everything else wrong with this character, the problem with Sage's master plan is that it's never explained to us. This is yet another cop-out by the writers to avoid any accountability for their shitty storytelling. Now Sage tells Homelander,
Just had to keep a few bits to myself. You know, the bits you'd fuck up by, being you.
But that's actually not true. The writers didn't want to tell the audience her plan because we would fuck it up. By thinking. Because if you lay out Sage's plan by the actions she takes and the events that happen, it all comes out as one big convoluted mess that has bigger holes in it than the Titanic. It's actually so broken and stupid that I had a difficult time writing this part of the script because I had to sift through all this garbage to figure out the plot. Dear God, I feel like I'm working for the showrunners. Give me a job, Eric Kripke, you rat fuck! So we now know that Sage's ultimate goal was to expose the president and the boys for the murder of Newman, turning them into criminals and having Calhoun be her patsy. Now this isn't going to be easy, but let's try to sort out how she accomplished this. Number 1. Sage creates social division by inciting a riot and framing Starlighters for the murders of Todd and friends. Number 2. In exchange for killing the boys, Sage promises Firecracker a spot in the Seven. She uses Firecracker as a public voice against the Starlighters. Number 3. Sage then searches for who's been leaking information at Vought. Number 4. Sage apparently then becomes aware that A-Train is the leak and gives him misinformation. Number 5. She attempts to recruit Newman to her side. Number 6. Firecracker is then used to turn Starlight into a public pariah for killing her unborn child and public assault. Number 7. She allows Cameron Coleman to take the fall as the leak instead of A-Train. Number 8. Sage finally convinces Newman to join their side. In turn, Newman brings the trust of the American elite who agree to the coup. Number 9. A-Train reveals the shapeshifter's location to the boys. Number 10. Sage is fired by Homelander for being incompetent. Number 11. Sage then has the shapeshifter become Starlight and delete all the files the boys had on Newman. Number 12. Have the shapeshifter somehow obtain a video of the president admitting his illegal activities and then try to kill him. Number 13. The assassination fails, but luckily Newman is killed by Butcher, which Sage then frames the president with because of the video the shapeshifter took. Number 14. Calhoun is sworn in as president, and swears his fealty to Homelander. Wow, we did it. We put this master plan together in a way that totally makes sense and has zero plot holes. Oh wait, that was sarcasm.
Exactly. It's all part of the plan.
What is the plan?
I kind of make it up as I go.
That's not really a plan then.
Okay, so it's not a plan. Look, I'm not good with plans. And I'm not good with clues.
So let's go through and rip apart every little thing that's wrong with this stupid master plan. So Sage ironically frames 2 black guys for the murder of Todd, who were not at the riot at all.
Footage of your 2 starlighters. About a mile from the bodies of time and death. It's hard to commit a murder when you're 20 blocks away.
Why didn't Sage use the shapeshifter to kill someone during the riot and frame them in the same way they were going to frame Starlight? The shapeshifter could have taken the identity of Colin or something and stabbed anyone in the crowd and framed him for murder. That way there would be no leak and the plan would have actually worked. I've asked this question before, but why did Sage make killing the boys a part of the requirement for joining the Seven for Firecracker? And then Sage lets Firecracker join anyway, even after she fails. It's never discussed again, even between the 2 characters. I mean, if I was Firecracker, I would be like, oh hey, thanks for letting me join despite me totally fucking up and failing to kill the boys. Which was the one thing you said that would get me into the Seven. And then Sage could have been like, oh yeah, sorry. Kind of retarded for me to even want them dead since they play such a big part in my master plan.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
Why does Sage say she uses A-Train to spread misinformation to the boys and constantly messes with her plans? A-Train tells the boys about the secret meeting with Newman. He steals Compound V for Huey. He tells them about Tech Knight's party and gives them the location of the shapeshifter. All of these things are pretty ruinous and have no way of serving Sage or her coup. Like, what if the boys had all decided to take Compound V and fight the Seven like they do in the comics? Or how about the Tech Knight party? What if MM had shot Sage in the fucking chest instead of her head? What if Kimiko had ripped her throat out or something, like she does to every nameless goon she kills? I mean, Sage's whole plan to get America's elite on her side for the coup almost completely fails because she gets blasted in the head by MM. This horrible mistake also results in Tech Knight's death, whose prisons Homelander was going to use to get rid of their political enemies. It is difficult to justify that Sage in any way intended for this to happen, or at least facilitated the situation by allowing A-Train to contact MM.
And then we'll just, see what happens. You ready?
Wait. So we're just gonna wing it?
Piper, there's a big difference between winging it and seeing what happens.
Did Sage also intend for A-Train to follow her to the shapeshifter's hideout? The boys show up and they almost kill her, and although she gets away, they still become aware of the shapeshifter's existence. Wouldn't that have been information Sage would have best kept secret? Would it not be easier for the shapeshifter to infiltrate the group if they were unaware of her existence? Wait, hold on. What did you say about misinformation?
No, he was the perfect misinformation delivery system until now. This was all part of the plan.
Not a great plan.
I mean, at the end you say that there was a few curveballs, but you also intended for A-Train to leak information. But what was wrong with A-Train's information?
No, he was the perfect misinformation delivery system.
Also, why does Sage infer to A-Train that she knows he's the leak? She just makes some snarky remarks at him that makes him panic a bit, but it doesn't really amount to anything for either character. Isn't Sage just making an enemy out of a really powerful guy for no reason? I mean, it doesn't benefit Sage in any way to let him know that she's onto him. Doing so would only result in some negative consequence for her. Like, what if A-Train got freaked out and decided it was too risky to keep leaking information to the boys like she wants him to? Or what if he decides to kill her? It's not like he hasn't killed people before who have gotten in his way. He could kill Sage at any moment. And quietly, too. He could drag her out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean and just leave her there and run back before anyone noticed. Actually, why doesn't he do that? It would save him from any threat of being revealed to Homelander, and it would also save me from breaking down this shitty fucking show.
It's just the shit.
These are just shit.
So when Sage gets fired by Homelander for being an incompetent idiot, she seems pretty shocked and even upset. Again, I must ask how she did not predict this was going to happen. Anyone with a fucking brain could tell that Homelander was getting pretty pissed off with Sage's constant lying and failures. So did Sage think that if she kept lying, that Homelander wouldn't fire her or kill her? I mean, at this point, there's no reason for her to protect A-Train. So she could give him up to Homelander. Or Sage could explain, in detail, her convoluted plan. Oh, But then the writers would actually have to have thought of a plan, and they didn't. So...
It's a perfect plan. So inspired, so devious, yet so simple.
Doesn't this whole assassination plot get completely ruined by the fact that the boys are aware of the shapeshifter? Couldn't the president just go public with this information? He could announce that he has evidence that Sister Sage is colluding with a shapeshifter assassin. They have witness testimony of CIA operatives, as well as a hideout that contained leaked Secret Service files.
Why is everyone so fucking stupid? Why aren't more people intelligent, like me?
The point is that estimating that all the president would do is hide out in a bunker with barely any protection around him is pretty stupid. Why the fuck are these guys using pistols and machine guns? Where are the anti-superhero weapons? You got any 50 cals or miniguns or something? You're protecting the president, right? Even if you ignore all that, there is still the issue of blaming Starlight for the assassination attempt. Now they know whoever attacks the president is actually a shapeshifter, so that wouldn't work. But oh wait, I guess the shapeshifter's real mission was to actually record the president saying something completely damning like,
If you'd killed Newman like I ordered, we wouldn't be stuck 4 stories underground playing pocket pool.
Wouldn't the president be a little tight-lipped about what information he randomly divulges to people when anyone he knows could be an assassin? It's pretty lucky that the shapeshifter walked in with the camera on right at the time that the president admitted to his crime. She didn't even need to start a conversation. She just walked in and got the information right away. But wait, why does she still try to kill the president if her real goal was to expose his assassination attempt on Newman? I am so confused. So confused! Okay, so we finally made it. The craziest part of this whole fucking show. So either Sage counted on the boys killing Newman for her plan to work, or she knew that Butcher would do it. However, either of these answers brings up a bunch of questions. It seems pretty likely that Sage thought that the boys would successfully assassinate Newman. However, there is no evidence or reason that Sage would be aware of the super secret soup-killing virus that the boys possess. Even if she was aware of the virus, there is no way for them to successfully administer it to Newman. Frenchie claims that he'll aim for some soft tissue with his little dart gun. But what the fuck does that even mean?
And I aim for soft tissue. Perhaps.
Newman got lasered by Homelander and it didn't even leave a mark. Huey threw acid on her face and nothing happened. So what, Frenchie, are you going to aim for? Especially when you're standing right next to her for some reason. But this doesn't even really matter because the boys decide that they're not going to kill Newman anyway. Which means that Sage is a fucking retard for thinking that they would. And she can't predict shit! So the only other possibility for the master plan to work is that Sage somehow knew that Butcher would end up killing Newman. But how did she know that he had the means or ability to do that? I mean, I guess Sage could have known about Butcher's cancer by finding his medical records. But then she would also have to know that he took Compound V again, which gave his cancer powers. Sage would also have to be aware that Butcher's super cancer has created an alter ego that would take over his body and would also be powerful enough to kill Newman. Wait a minute. How did Butcher even know about this super secret meeting with Newman when he's been in a government facility all day?
Okay. Get the fuck out of here. You're done. Go back to your little litter box in Detroit and die alone.
So that was it. That was Sage's master plan. I want you to stop and think about what I said today. Think and ask yourself this. How the fuck did these people sit in a room for 2 years and write this shit script? How did no one ask what the fuck was happening? It always surprises me when you think about the process of creating something like a TV show and all the people involved, and you still end up with something that a 16-year-old could have written in their creative writing class. You have to write the script, rehearse the scenes, film the fucking shit. Then you gotta review the shit you made. After that, you gotta edit the shit, promote the shit, market the shit, and so on. And you'd think that after all that, after your shitty, stupid idea has gone through the hands of a million people, and on their clothes, probably a little bit in their mouths, that someone in this line of fecal distribution system would say, "Hey, what the fuck is this crap you're feeding me? I'd rather watch my firstborn son get his head cut off in a desert somewhere than sit here and watch one more second of this terrible fucking TV show. But no. They let it happen. They said, hey, why not? Maybe they didn't see the show for what it had become. Maybe they were nervous. Maybe a little scared. But that's the heart of the problem. It's you, Eric Kripke, you rat bastard. You and your big bald head. And that's what I'm coming for next. That big, tasty, bald brain of yours.
Going to quote it. Hi, trolls. 1, this is literally the opposite of the show's fucking message. 2, you're causing pain to real people with real feelings. Be kind. If you can't be kind, then eat a bag of dicks, fuck off to the sun, and don't watch The Boys. We don't want you.
Yeah, that is a thing that I said.
Incredible.
Actually, I take it all back. I just didn't like Sage was a woman and that she's smart. Number 7. Eric Kripke can eat a bag of dicks and fuck off to the sun. Now, I've covered a lot in this series on why The Boys Season 4 sucks. I've talked about how the plot is a muddled mess, the characters are broken and inconsistent, but all of these things only happen because Eric Kripke let them happen. Now, you can tell from his interviews taken just before Season 4's release that Eric Kripke was pretty confident about this show, especially when The Boys was first released. Marvel and DC movies were hitting their peaks, and the show did a good job of creating something new and edgy for the superhero genre. However, it's pretty noticeable that ever since Season 1, the audience's opinion has gradually been dropping off. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score lowers more and more with every season, while the critic score keeps rising. This is pretty common in TV shows that start pushing woke political messages. While The Boys has never hidden its point of view in the show, it has gradually become more aggressive with every season. Season 1 had the odd moment where your face was rubbed in it. However, it was pretty forgivable, and it didn't take away from the larger story the writers were trying to tell. When defending The Boys, however, some fans will claim that the show hasn't changed at all, and it's been consistently political in its messaging. However, Eric Kripke himself has admitted that the show has gotten increasingly political.
And as you said, The Boys has become increasingly political.
While yes, Season 1 certainly had covered political topics. For example, Starlight's storyline with the Deep was a clear nod to the Me Too movement and the abuse of power in show business. However, this storyline served a greater purpose to the narrative because it disenchanted Starlight's view on being a celebrity and started her down the journey of fighting against Vought. They also treated the Deep as more than just a shallow asshole and showed a human side to the character. By the end of Season 1, you start to feel bad for him after he's experienced his own sexual assault. This kind of storytelling quickly fell off after Season 1, as the writers would stick more and more of their paper-thin political messaging into the show. The Deep himself was a good representation of this, because his character development is completely destroyed by his speech that he gives to Starlight about how the Me Too movement failed.
I do not respect your truth. I do not honor and cherish your story, and I do not fucking apologize.
What was the purpose of making the audience sympathize with the character, and have him go on this journey of abuse, if he was just going to go back on it all?
Like everybody starts out somewheres, and then they do something gets done to them, changes their life. That's called their arc. Where's my arc?
It's clear by watching the interviews with Kripke that his own fears of Trump have severely impacted the direction and the writing of the show. Events like January 6th were clearly referenced to, and Kripke makes it apparent that he uses Homelander as a direct comparison to Trump. His disgust for people who believe in right-wing politics is on display in the show. All of Homelander's followers are shown to be stupid, arrogant, obnoxious, racist, and quick to anger. People that are easily led by a fascist dictator who's hell-bent on genocide, while the Starlighters, on the other hand, are put in the best possible light. No pun intended. They're depicted as open-minded victims trying to do their best in a morally bankrupt society, with no hang-ups of their own. And it all just feels so mean-spirited. You can feel a real desire to push their message in the faces of the audience. If I've learned one thing from being on Chris Tyson's Discord channel, is that leaving evidence is a bad idea. And while Eric Kripke didn't abandon his own child for another one, he did, however, leave a series of confessionals detailing how much he dislikes people that had different political opinions than him.
The show is many things. Subtle is not one of them. If you think Homelander is the hero of this show, I just don't know what to tell you besides, like, seek therapy.
So it seems that the writing team at The Boys really wanted to reflect their points of view. Characters that the writers created were now more about social commentary rather than being interesting individuals. I mean, Sage's literal backstory is that she created a cure for cancer to save her grandmother from dying, but bigoted white men didn't take her seriously, which resulted in her grandmother dying. The show is plainly saying that racism and sexism stopped the cure for cancer. It's pretty hard to take something like this seriously. Like, why didn't Sage just administer the cure herself instead of letting her grandmother die? Or that anyone would be so racist that they wouldn't want to cure cancer is still pretty hard to believe. You're telling me someone wouldn't want to patent that shit? It's just gotten to the point where they throw logic out the window to serve some random political rant that has nothing to do with the characters or the plot.
I just had abortion mansplained to me by a guy who refuses to be alone with any woman who isn't his wife. Or mistress.
The Vernon family started out as slave catchers. You know, I bet A-Train here would have given my great-great-granddaddy a run for his money.
Oh.
Huh?
But we would have caught you.
Oh.
Before Singer replaces us with a bunch of transgender illegals that will do everything.
Save the boogeyman shit for the idiots watching VNN.
Victimize an innocent man because I guess that's just cool to do to white guys nowadays.
You know, I think the show's always dovetailed with cultural and political things that are going on. And I think Kripke always said, you know, it was like a dream of his to make a show, you know, that you can talk about all these real issues and real themes injected through the lens of a superhero show.
The Vernon family started out as
slave catchers.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
Now, based on some of the comments I've gotten on my previous videos, I guess I have to explain that it's okay to have political messages in a story. But the deal is that these messages serve the characters and the story, and not the other way around. If your stupid politics fuck with the characters, or how they act, it pisses people off, because nobody wants to sit here for an hour and get lectured by you and your millionaire friends. Of course there's a way to both tell a good story and spread a political message. It's been done before. And when it's done right, usually it's a timeless story that can have relevance in the present as well as the future. But this is not what the boys have done. This season has already aged like moldy milk after the assassination attempt on Trump. The show has already backtracked by renaming the season's finale, which was originally called Assassination Run, which is pretty revealing of how shallow all of this political pandering is. It's a spineless attempt to win over the favor of fans that do not exist. Because the real fans of the show is the people that they adamantly hate. And that's... Yes, a show called The Boys hates men. You know, for a group of people that think that they're morally superior to everyone else, who think that they're open-minded and accepting of all groups, they sure like to be sexist towards the men of the show. And there's no greater example of this than Huey. I've already gone over how much attention has been paid to Starlight's sexual assault in Season 1. So when the writers decided to flip the coin and have Huey have his own experience this season, how do you think it was treated? With respect? With pity? No. It's a joke. I mean, Huey is literally dragged into a sex dungeon and is abused for an entire episode, but there might as well be a laugh track in the background.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm fine. So much dried cum. You just, you tap my undies, they'll shatter like peanut brittle, man. Oh.
The Boys is a show that examines and very much damns toxic masculinity.
Forgiveness and mercy and all the real things that save the world, because strong men certainly don't.
If that wasn't bad enough, he has sex with the shapeshifter under a false identity. Yes, a literal crime which could definitely be considered. The best part of all of this, though, is that after this happens, Starlight berates Huey for being tricked into it. So much for being open-minded and accepting.
I mean, you know...
How many times?
Had to be less than... 20.
Oh my fucking God, I was gone for 10 days!
She almost always initiated, and again, I cannot overstate this enough. I thought it was you!
Yeah, and as long as you were getting laid, you didn't look too close.
As if Kripke wasn't going for enough cliches, he decided that telling his fans over and over again that if they didn't like his politics, then they didn't have to watch the show. I mean, has this ever worked for a showrunner? When did show business become more about making people angry rather than pleasing the fans? saying stuff like,
we first pitched the show, it was before Trump was elected. And the idea that a celebrity would actively want to turn themselves into a fascist autocrat was kind of a crazy idea. I mean, it still is, but it turned out to have happened. But we sort of lucked into whose metaphor is really about the moment we're living in, which is the cross-section of celebrity and authoritarianism. That tells me something about what's happening to the United States. You know, like, that's a very right-wing, that's a very right-wing song. And so it helps set like a political tone of how things are skewing more and more to the right. Gonna lean into it, and then the audience can sort of decide whether they want to watch or not. I mean, it's like it's almost become South Park.
I think of our best stuff comes out is we try to personify this side of the argument and this side, and then we take a little funny way out.
Right.
And I'm just not interested in Trey can vouch for this. I'm not interested in sitting around and agreeing with people. Right. And where we live is like the liberal part of the world. And not because
there's a group think.
There's a group think, and you only get to some new truth by argument and by dissent. And it's like some of it is just, we just play devil's advocate all the time.
So whether you're Elizabeth Banks, Mindy Kaling, Tim Miller, or Taika Waititi, or anyone else in this long list of Hollywood idiots, antagonizing the paying customer never does well in the money department.
Yes.
I mean, I'm truly amazed he hasn't written his own diss track yet.
Focus something with creative. Speak truth to power. Keep an eye out for you silly racists. And now they use it to describe anything they threaten by. Remember when Gambino put it in the zeitgeist?
Kripke, though, is no stranger to irony. While he seems very willing to dish out the mockery and social commentary, he can't take it very well. He was famously outspoken about the backlash Anne Moriarty received after her turning herself into Michael Jackson, lashing out at the so-called trolls on Twitter.
And why I did it is I'm really protective of my actors, you know? Like, they're all really good people. And you start to feel like their dad, you know, in a way. And, like, she was genuinely hurt and like, really upset. And I just felt like, you know, fuck them. Like, I was genuinely angry. I can't say I put a lot of careful thought into it.
It's perfect.
I just was like, I was pissed that they were coming after one of my actors. And I actually, the response was strangely positive. Like, I think there was just a lot of people that watched that stuff from afar and it's just like, that's bullshit. Yes. You know, like, I get that person is in the public eye and you're allowed to say, I like that performance. I don't like that performance. I like that show. I don't like that show. You know, that actor works for me. They don't work for me. Obviously, we all do. But like, when it starts to become like these personal attacks on who they are, and like when fucking Megyn Kelly wants to talk about it, it's really not fair because they're not in a position that they can fight back.
So of course it's justifiable to be upset when someone you care about is being berated online, especially by spazzy assholes like me. But the irony, of course, here is that Eric Kripke constantly attacks people personally. He viciously goes after Trump, and he creates characters like Cameron Coleman, who are an open parody of Tucker Carlson.
Who wants their balls crushed?
Me? If you're going to play yourself as this edgy, no-holds-barred commentator, then you better be ready to be treated pretty harshly in turn. But then he can't handle it when one of his cast members gets roasted for having a bad facelift? Honestly, it's pretty embarrassing. And again, I'm not saying that he has to be okay with it, or be silent on the topic, but saying that the trolls can eat a bag of dicks and fuck off to the sun is a pretty idiotic way to go about it. That, if anything, is only going to encourage more of a reaction online because it reveals how one-sided he wants this all to be. He can make gross caricatures of public figures and write them into weird sexual situations, and then mock fans for their opinions. But we better not mock him or his lackeys because they're special people.
Oh, irony! Oh, no, we don't get that here.
So no, the show isn't brave or edgy or cool anymore. It's just par for the course. And that may be the most disappointing thing about all of this, is that The Boys was supposed to be above this kind of tacky, basic commentary. They were supposed to be making fun of things like Marvel and Disney, but they ended up just stooping down to their level. Isn't this a little late in the game to be throwing yourself into the ring of failed franchises? There have been so many chances to look around at the graveyard of dead Disney IPs and take some notes. How many times have we seen shows get ratioed into oblivion? How many billions of dollars have been lost trying to spread political activism instead of telling a goddamn story?
But you have not seen what I've seen.
I have seen my share.
You have not seen what I have seen.
Well, looks like Eric Kripke got his wish. We can all talk about how ignorant the Hollywood elite are when discussing real-world issues. They see things through a pinhole of glamour and elitism, which is all plain to see in the cinema they create. So we all heard you, Eric. We can see what you are and what you believe in. And based on the low ratings of this season, we don't like it. But in all fairness, it seems like he may have gotten the message. In some of his recent interviews, Kripke's arrogance and forward political commentary seems to have dialed back a bit. So maybe we got through to him. Maybe watching his ratings fall off a cliff popped his ego a bit. And that would be nice. Because, believe it or not, I don't want to hate this show. I loved The Boys when it first came out. And it's clear that they still have some good ideas once in a while. So I hope Eric Kripke has learned something from all of this. But even if he hasn't, it's not like there isn't a million shows out there to pick from. So to follow in the footsteps of my mother, I'm going to throw this terrible and evil show in the high school dumpster, hoping to put it out of my mind forever. But it will come back. It'll always come back to haunt me.
Yes, I got what I deserve. Kept you